He said he was going on a trip with his buddies, camping, no signal, no Wi-Fi. 3 days later, she saw him wearing a wedding suit, standing next to a bride, kissing in the middle of a lavish wedding party. His buddies? Nowhere to be seen. Just a honeymoon with a secret wife. Want to know how she reacted? Stick around for this shocking story. Ella Cruz and Sam Ward had been living together for almost 3 years in a small but tidy apartment on the north side of Chicago. Everything about it felt steady, safe, like they'd spent a decade stuck in the same routine. Sam was the kind of guy you could bring home to your mom. He could cook, he knew how to handle your nosy aunt's questions. He always left the last bite on the plate and never forgot to take out the trash on Tuesdays. Ella didn't love Sam in a fireworks kind of way. She loved him with trust, a kind of trust she'd never given anyone before. She used to be someone who overthought everything. But with Sam, she stopped. She let go of scanning for red flags, stopped checking his phone, stopped playing out worst-case scenarios in her head. Because with Sam, there was no reason to doubt. One Friday morning, while Ella was making breakfast, Sam walked into the kitchen, stretched, and said, "I'm going camping this weekend with some college buddies." Ella turned around, still holding the spoon. "Who's going?" "Henry, Mark, Brandon. A few others. You wouldn't know them. The guys who love to argue about cast iron and whiskey." "Sounds like your kind of weekend." "Yeah, it's been a while. They said there's no phone signal out there, so I'm just going to keep my phone on airplane mode to save battery." "How many days?" 3 days, 2 nights. I'll be back Sunday night." Ella nodded. Whatever Sam said, she believed. Her mind didn't go to what if. No schemes, no drama. That night, they had an early dinner. Sam was still Sam, calm, a little laid back, chatting casually about how his company just got a new manager and how that might change the workplace culture. Nothing strange, nothing off. After dinner, Sam packed his backpack, tent, flashlight, multi-tool, thermal jacket. Everything neatly arranged like someone who'd been camping a dozen times before. Ella watched him get ready, feeling a small, quiet sense of pride. He was the kind of guy who could handle anything. If the entire city lost power tomorrow, she knew Sam would have candles, backup batteries, and a plan B. She asked, "Want me to cook something for you to bring?" "Nah, we're just grabbing ready-made stuff. Camping's supposed to be roughing it." She nodded, still not the slightest bit suspicious. Early the next morning, the alarm went off at 5:45. Sam got up first, took a quick shower, threw on jeans, a plaid shirt, and a gray windbreaker. Ella was still in bed, eyes half closed. He came into the room and kissed her forehead. "I'm heading out. Go back to sleep. Be careful. Always." The door closed. His footsteps faded down the hallway. Ella rolled over and went back to sleep. When she finally got up, sunlight had already filled the kitchen. No kettle whistling. No smell of toasted bread. Sam always made breakfast on weekends, but not this time. Ella ate alone. She put her phone on the table but wasn't waiting for any messages. He'd said there'd be no signal, and she believed that, just like she'd believed everything else. At noon, she went out to get her hair done. In the afternoon, she stopped by a bookstore, came home, made pasta for one, put on an old movie, stretched out on the couch. No knocks at the door. No messages. No reason to panic. Sam had once said, silence doesn't always mean something's wrong. Sometimes a guy just needs a little quiet to reset. She used to think that was deep. Now she didn't think anything at all. She just waited. That night, Ella stared at the ceiling before falling asleep. Everything felt so peaceful, it almost scared her, like the calm before something breaks. What she didn't know was that every word Sam had said was part of a script. There was no Henry, no Mark, no Brandon, no tent, no campfire, no stargazing in the Shawnee woods, just a tuxedo, a white wedding dress. A stage where Sam was the groom and Ella wasn't part of the story. She didn't know. This would be the last time she ever fully believed in something. But sometimes betrayal doesn't hit like a slap. It creeps in quietly, like a cold line of text on a banking app. Saturday afternoon, Ella was sitting on the couch, about to check out an Amazon order, when she noticed a sharp drop in their joint account balance. She opened the transaction history. One charge, $5,000. Description: resort prepayment, Harmony Bay private villa. She frowned. Harmony Bay? What resort was that? She typed it into Google. A flood of images popped up. Oceanfront villas, a lavish wedding hall, white silk-covered chairs, roses climbing up marble columns. Nothing about it said camping. Ella sat up straight. Sam had said, "We're heading into the woods, no signal." He said he'd keep his phone on airplane mode. She sent a quick text. "Everything okay? Don't forget to drink water. Stay cool out there." No read receipt. No reply. She bit her lip, opened Google again, and typed Harmony Bay plus Illinois. A pin dropped on the map. Over 3 hours south of Chicago, near the suburbs, nowhere near the Shawnee National Forest, Sam had mentioned. She wasn't ready to jump to conclusions, but that cold, crawling feeling down her back wouldn't go away. She turned to check the Instagrams of Sam's friends, even though most of them rarely posted. A user named Rebecca Marlowe had posted a story 2 hours ago. She tapped it open. A luxurious dinner table, 2 champagne glasses, a man's hand in a tuxedo gently touching the hand of the woman beside him. Faces out of frame, but in the reflection of the glass, Ella saw it, a sliver of white dress, a wedding dress. She zoomed in, her hands started to tremble. The caption read, "Some love stories deserve this kind of ending." Ella tapped on Rebecca's profile picture. She recognized her instantly, the girl from last year's Christmas party at Sam's place. The one who had called Sam the teapot guy. Ella remembered that line because Sam had just smiled. He didn't deny it. She sent a message right away. "Rebecca, that photo? Where was it taken?" No reply. 5 minutes later, Rebecca's account went private. Ella felt it clearly now. Something was being hidden. She checked the timestamp on the story, 2 hours ago. That meant the photo was taken today. If it really was Harmony Bay, then it wasn't just Sam's little getaway. It might be where he was living out an entirely different life. She stood up and grabbed her coat. Her hands weren't shaking anymore, just cold. Everything in the apartment, from the glass they used to share to the shirt Sam left draped over the chair, suddenly felt like it didn't belong to her. She didn't call, she didn't text, she didn't wait for anyone to confirm anything. Ella opened Google Maps and typed in Harmony Bay Private Villa. Estimated drive time, 3 hours, 12 minutes. She unplugged her phone, grabbed her wallet, locked the door behind her. The sky over Chicago was starting to cloud. She merged onto the highway, slipping into the weekend traffic heading south. The radio randomly played a quiet song, but she didn't hear it. There was only one question looping in her head. Who's wearing that white dress? Nearly 3 hours of driving, Ella didn't stop. She didn't call anyone. She didn't wonder, what if I'm wrong? She just needed to know. Just once, to look directly at what she'd spent so long avoiding. As she turned onto the road, marked by a wooden sign that read Harmony Bay, where stories begin, the rain began to fall, soft and steady. Ella rolled down the window and took a deep breath. She was here, and in just a few minutes, she'd finally find out who she was in the story Sam had been telling someone else. The rain had just stopped when Ella pulled up in front of the resort gates. Water still pooled on the pavement, her tires crunching softly over a layer of white gravel. The oak sign reading, Harmony Bay Private Villa, stood crisp and polished between 2 neatly trimmed rows of palm trees. She turned off the engine, but didn't get out right away. Her chest rose and fell. Her hands on the wheel were ice cold. At the front desk, the woman greeted her with a practiced smile. Ella kept her face calm, steady. She simply said she was here to check on a reservation. No specific name, just enough to get the ball rolling. Ella Cruz, it might be under that. I'm not sure. My friend might have booked it in my name. The receptionist typed quickly, scanned the screen, then shook her head. There's no one by that name in the system for this week. She paused. But maybe you're part of the wedding? That's the only private event we have today. That word made Ella's heartbeat stall for a second. Wedding? Yes, the receptionist continued, casually. The ceremony started at 3 p.m., out on the main lawn behind the villa. Guests are asked not to film. Thanks for understanding. Would you like me to walk you over? Ella gave a faint smile. No need. I'm just taking a walk. Thank you. She stepped slowly onto the stone path. On both sides were white chairs draped in sheer fabric, archways wrapped in climbing roses. The chairs had been cleared, but the signs remained. Sam and Madison, written in white chalk on a rustic wooden board, hung next to the flower trellis. That name. Those 2 names. No mistake. Ella froze. A server collecting empty wine glasses near a reception table noticed her and smiled politely. "Hi there. If you're looking for someone from the wedding, they're at the tea lounge by the lake." She didn't answer, she just kept walking. Beyond the row of trees was a man-made lake. A small crowd had gathered, men in suits, women in silk dresses. Laughter floated gently through the air. Ella stood behind a tree trunk, frozen, breathless. There, right there in the middle of it all, was Sam. Gray suit, bow tie, smiling, talking to an older man. His hand rested gently on the back of a woman. Brown hair, white dress, low-cut back, a small flower tattoo just below her shoulder. She turned, smiled at Sam. They kissed, slowly, like the world had melted away. Wait, hold that moment, 3 seconds. Ask yourself, if you were Ella, what would you do? Would you storm into that wedding? Would you shout in front of everyone, "He's been living with me for 3 years"? Would you point at the bride and ask, "Do you even know who you're marrying?" Tell us how you would handle it in the comments. As for me, I'd crash that wedding so hard they'd feel it for a lifetime. But Ella didn't do what I'd do. She didn't pull out her phone. She didn't walk closer. She didn't make a scene. She just stood there, less than 30 steps away. The wind skimmed across the lake. A piece of veil fabric fluttered by, brushing her ankle like a ghost. A middle-aged woman walked past, holding a wedding gift box, talking on the phone. "The wedding's beautiful. The groom's some tech exec from Chicago. I heard he just bought a house in Miami for his wife. The bride is stunning." Miami. Sam had said his company had a branch there. He'd taken a lot of business trips there, 3-day stints, just like this one. Ella turned and walked away. No one at the wedding noticed her. No one knew who she was. In that moment, she wasn't even sure she knew herself. Back in the car, she shut the door. Her whole body trembled, not from the cold. She sat still for nearly 10 minutes. No words, no tears, no screaming. Her face was pale, blank. She unlocked her phone, not even sure why. There it was, the message she'd sent Sam that morning. "Everything okay?" She stared at it, then typed a single word, "Congrats," and erased it. She put the phone away, started the engine. As the car rolled away from Harmony Bay, she didn't look back. Behind her was a wedding. Ahead, 3 hours of road, and a storm inside her that had no forecast. Ella drove for 3 hours with the radio off. No AC, no windows down, no tears. The only things moving were the steering wheel, and her gaze, sometimes sharp, sometimes hollow. The afternoon rain had stopped. Streetlights flickered on along the highway. Chicago appeared in the distance, its golden glow cold and distant, like even the city didn't know what to say about what had just happened. She parked in the basement garage, pressed the elevator button, and walked into the apartment as if she'd never left. No one knew she had just watched her boyfriend, the man who once promised to marry her, get married to someone else. Same timeline, different location. Ella hung her coat on the rack, washed her hands with cold water, and stood in the bathroom staring into the mirror for exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds. Not a single tear fell. But something in her eyes was gone. The next evening, Sam called. FaceTime. Ella hesitated for a second, then answered. His face filled the screen, slightly sun-kissed, gray hoodie, hair a little messy. "Babe," he smiled. "Sorry, there really wasn't any signal. Had to head closer to town just to get Wi-Fi." Ella nodded, gave a soft smile. "Yeah, I figured." Sam started talking, his voice smooth, casual, like he'd rehearsed the lines in his head. Brandon almost lit the grill on fire. He dumped rum on the flames, thinking it'd add flavor, nearly torched the whole tent. Ella pressed her lips together. Didn't believe a single word. "Henry snores. No joke. I had to sleep in the car the first night. Cold and damp, but at least it was quiet." Ella nodded, eyes locked on the screen. Her fingers quietly slid over to her phone beside her, opening the voice recording app. Sam kept talking, his tone steady, like a man with nothing to hide. "I took a few pics. I'll show you when I get back. There was this one sunset, trees lit up red like the whole forest was glowing. Made me think of you." Ella smiled faintly. "Sounds nice." Sam looked at her. "You okay? You look kinda tired." "Just didn't sleep much." They talked for a few more minutes, mostly Sam talking, Ella listening. When he said, "I missed you," she just replied, "Yeah." When the call ended, Ella didn't exhale. She stopped the recording, saved the file, and named it Lies, Day 4. The very next morning, Ella started looking into private investigators. She didn't just want what her eyes had already seen. She wanted the whole truth. Proof, documents, records, addresses, anything that could confirm Sam wasn't just unfaithful, he was double-living, calculated, and deliberate. She found a small office in West Loop that specialized in marital fraud cases. The man who met her was in his 50s, short, wore a worn but clean suit, spoke little, looked her dead in the eye. "What do you need confirmed?" he asked. "He just married someone else," Ella said, "while still living with me. I need legal-grade proof, photos, witnesses, marriage records if possible." The man nodded. "I'll need a name, photo, phone number, current address, and what's your budget?" Ella handed it all over, no bargaining, no hesitation. After the meeting, Ella returned home and sat for hours at her laptop, combing through every old folder of Sam's. She began building a timeline, matching his work trips with every so-called Florida business meeting, noting down suspicious charges, gaps in contact, hotel booking emails she'd never noticed before. Nothing felt like routine anymore. Everything was data. She didn't call Sam, didn't text, didn't say a word. She didn't cry, not once. But her eyes changed, day by day. No longer looking at him like someone she loved, but like a problem she was determined to solve. 3 days after her first meeting with the investigator, Ella got the first email. The attached report was short, but every line hit like a hammer to the chest. Subject, Madison Voss. Legal spouse, married to Samuel Ward Green. Wedding date, 3 months ago, Miami, Florida. Certificate, verified. Legal. The attachment was a scan, a real marriage certificate, official, stamped in red by the Miami-Dade County Courthouse. She read the name over and over again. Samuel W. Green. Green, Sam's mother's last name. He'd once told her, "I only use that for medical paperwork, makes the insurance stuff easier." Turns out, it made building a second life easier too. At the bottom of the report was an extra line. Current residence, 4219 Newton Avenue, Miami. Property registered jointly, Samuel Green and Madison Voss Green. Ella froze. They had a house, a real house, with a porch, with windows, with a title deed. While she and Sam were splitting rent in a Chicago apartment, sharing the electric bill, trading turns on the blender, he was living like a husband in another state. The detective sent over a string of social media links, what was left and what had been scrubbed. Ella clicked on one, a Facebook account under the handle @madison.voss.greenlife. The account was locked, but the profile photo was still visible. Madison beaming in a wedding dress, fresh flowers, holding Sam's hand, no doubt. It was him. The photo was posted 3 months ago. It had only been up for a few hours. No comments, no shares. But Ella found a cached version. She downloaded it, saved it to a private folder on her laptop named The Curtain. Each photo in there was a slice of truth. Them toasting in a garden. Madison cupping Sam's face as he looked at her like she was his whole world. The two of them signing a marriage certificate with 2 witnesses nearby. Sam had never looked at Ella like that. She thought back to all those urgent business trips he used to mention. She remembered one call in particular. He was standing on a rooftop, birds chirping, waves in the background. He said he was on a break between sessions at a tech conference. Conference? Or honeymoon? There was another time he told her he'd lost signal for 2 whole days. Hotel server crashed, he'd said. Ella believed him. She even texted, "Don't forget to drink water. I know you don't sleep well on work trips." She used to care about every little detail. Now, every one of those details felt like a noose tightening around her neck, a cruel joke she hadn't realized she was the punchline of. She didn't call anyone, didn't tell a soul. She spent all of Saturday night going through every file the detective had sent. Flight logs. Sam had booked round-trip tickets from Chicago to Miami once a month. Each trip lined up perfectly with the times he'd said, "Florida's having some technical issues." Ella opened Google Maps, pasted in the address for Sam and Madison's house, switched to satellite view. There it was, a small 2-story home with a blue roof, an SUV parked in the front yard under the shade of a tree. She zoomed in on every corner of the image and wondered, did he ever hold Madison at that front door the way he used to hold her? Did he ever open the car door for her, tell her she was his favorite person, use those same soft lies? Or were his best words saved for the wife Ella never even knew she was supposed to be competing with? No. Ella didn't see Madison as a rival. She saw her as another victim. The difference was, Madison had been called wife, had worn the white dress, had a wedding, had her name on the deed. Ella? 3 years living together, and Sam never once brought up sharing a name on anything. Not even the lease. Not even the bank account. It was always joint, but separate. She started to feel disgusted. Not with Sam, with herself. Disgusted for believing so blindly. Disgusted for thinking she was the special one, when in truth, she was just the easier one to manage. Ella used to think love meant not doubting. Now she knew. Loving without any guard up is like handing someone a knife and slowly getting cut, one slice at a time, without even realizing you're bleeding. If you've been listening up to this point, you might be asking, was Ella the other woman? Was she the one who came after the wedding? Was she the one who unknowingly stepped into someone else's marriage? So tell us, who do you think was the official one? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because 4 days after receiving the final report from the private investigator, Ella wasn't just wondering anymore. She was acting. She walked into a law office in River North. 18 stories of glass and steel, straight to the 6th floor carrying a thick file, no longer just evidence. Now, a legal counterstrike. She was greeted by Julia Marks, a sharp-faced attorney in her mid-30s, calm, minimal, and with the quiet authority of someone who'd heard every kind of betrayal the world could throw at a woman. "What do you need me to do?" Julia asked, once they were seated in a small, bare-carpeted meeting room with the curtains drawn. Ella didn't answer right away. She reached into her bag and pulled out a neatly organized stack of documents. Wedding photos, the marriage certificate, bank statements, screenshots of the Harmony Bay booking, the investigator's report, and extracted text messages from backup storage. She slid the folder across the table to Julia. "He lived with me in Chicago for 3 years, but he legally married another woman named Madison Voss in Florida. During our time together, he used our joint account to pay for their honeymoon and wedding villa. I have full documentation of his lies, financial exploitation, and marital fraud under federal law." Julia picked up the file, flipped through the first few pages, her eyes scanning quickly. "What do you want?" Ella responded without hesitation. "I'm not here to make a scene. I want his accounts frozen. I want to report financial fraud to the bank and file a claim for identity misuse and misappropriation of shared assets. If possible, I want to open a federal case for cross-state marital fraud." Julia didn't nod or shake her head. She just kept reading. "Whose name is on the account?" "Joint. But the money's mine. My paychecks went in. He barely worked. I have full income statements, including monthly auto deposit records. Do you have proof he used that money for the wedding at Harmony Bay?" Ella slid over an email Sam had sent to the resort, booking confirmation from his personal email. The payment method listed, their joint account credit card. Both names on the billing address. Julia paused. "This is the key point. We can pursue charges for misusing a joint account to commit fraud, especially if the other party was unaware and did not consent. It's technically a civil dispute, but with a provable intent to deceive, it crosses into criminal territory." Ella looked her straight in the eye. "I also have a voice recording from the call where he told me he was camping. I kept it." Julia made a note. "Good. That shows deliberate concealment and intent to defraud." Over the next 3 days, Julia and her legal team filed freeze requests on Sam Ward's accounts at 2 separate banks. A full civil suit was drafted, along with a formal report submitted to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois. They didn't yet know if Sam would face criminal charges. But one thing was certain. He was officially under investigation. Sam's account was officially frozen on Friday at 11:17 a.m. Over $32,000 became instantly inaccessible. At the same time, an automated email was sent out by the bank to both Sam and Madison because he had used their shared address in Miami for verification. Madison saw the notification first. She called the bank, confused, asking what was going on. When they explained the freeze was due to an active dispute involving alleged marital fraud, she was stunned. 1 hour later, Madison called Sam directly. Ella never found out what was said in that call, but the investigator reported this. By that afternoon, Madison left the house on Newton Avenue. 2 large suitcases, 1 box of personal belongings. She didn't speak to any neighbors. All she said to the building security was, "I won't be coming back." 3 days later, Madison's Facebook account disappeared. Her Instagram went private. A friend of Madison's replied to the investigator's message with a single line: "Madison needs time. She didn't know anything." Ella printed it out, pinned it to her board. Not out of spite, but as a reminder, she wasn't crazy. She was a witness, and Madison, just like her, had been betrayed. That night, Sam called Ella. She didn't pick up. He sent a message. "What's going on with my bank account? Do you know anything about this?" Ella stared at the screen, then replied with one line: "I know everything, but I don't need to hear it from you." There was no follow-up. Ella sat still. For the first time after all the silence, she felt like she was taking back control, not with tears, but with the law. No need to scream for validation, no need to convince anyone she was right. Just hold the truth in her hands and do what was right. It wasn't revenge. It was closure, done properly. Sam didn't reply to her message, didn't call again, didn't show up at her door like she once imagined he might. He vanished. For 4 days after the account was frozen, he went completely dark. No public reaction, no apology, no signs of guilt or panic, just silence, like he was the one waiting now to see how far she would go. But Ella didn't go far. She just did one final thing. She turned on the printer, one file at a time. The marriage certificate between Sam and Madison. The wedding photos from Harmony Bay. The resort invoice, paid using the joint account. The bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals. The voice recording of Sam saying he was camping. Notes from the law office. Even the photo of the house in Miami where Sam lived as a legal husband. Everything was printed, organized into a clean file folder, clipped tight and sealed inside a brown envelope. No note, no title, no explanation. Recipient, Margaret Ward, Sam's mother. Ella remembered the look Margaret gave her the first time they met. Polished. White cardigan, pearl necklace, soft voice, sharp eyes. "Ella," she'd said, "our family is very traditional. My son needs someone who knows her place, someone who understands how to carry herself." And when Sam wasn't around, Margaret had said it even clearer. "I know my son likes you, but Ella, you're not the kind of woman I imagined sitting at a table with my relatives." Ella didn't react. Back then, she stayed quiet, thinking time might soften Margaret. Now she knew better, and she no longer needed her approval. She sealed the envelope, wrote out Margaret Ward's home address in Evanston, the same old 3-story house Sam had taken her to twice, once for Thanksgiving, once for their first Christmas together. The next morning, Ella mailed the file through express delivery. Signature required. No aliases. Sent directly under her real name, Ella Cruz. She didn't wait for confirmation. She didn't track the package. She knew it would arrive. She knew Margaret would open it, and she knew she would read every single page. This wasn't revenge. This was returning the truth to the person who needed to see it most. Sam had been her son. Madison had become her daughter-in-law without her knowledge, and Ella, she was never truly accepted. But this time, Margaret wouldn't be able to deny her. Not because Ella demanded recognition, but because the truth had been printed. And you can't tear that up. You can't unsee it. You can't pretend you didn't know. Back home, Ella opened her contacts list, scrolled to Sam Ward's name. She didn't hesitate. Selected. Block contact. Then came the email, Instagram. Every platform. No breakup message, no rage-filled curses, no old photos resent with sarcastic captions, no tearing up clothes, no burning letters, no late-night live streams telling the world her pain, just one click. Like hitting delete, but in her heart, there was nothing she needed to delete. It would all still exist. It just no longer had permission to speak. Ella wasn't the kind of person waiting for an explanation anymore. She didn't need to win the conversation. She just needed to leave the loop. No one walks away with more power than the one who leaves without a sound. She didn't tell her friends, didn't post a status, didn't cry in the shower or sketch old memories. She woke up on time, ate 3 meals, went to work, answered emails. At night, she listened to the recording one last time. Sam's voice was soft, easy, describing a make-believe tent, a burned-out grill, the cold forest wind. Scenes that never existed. Words delivered like truth. Ella listened, start to finish, didn't blink. And when it ended, she didn't replay it. She didn't back it up to the cloud, didn't download it. She just deleted it. Their story didn't end with a slap, a scream, or a dramatic confrontation in front of a crowd. It ended with quiet cruelty. One block, one envelope. A girl sits alone in her apartment, not broken, not bitter, just done talking. 1 year later, New York isn't like Chicago. It's faster, colder, lonelier. But Ella can breathe here. Not the kind of breath you take when you're bracing for impact, but a real one. She lives on the 10th floor of an apartment overlooking Manhattan. It's not big, but it's enough. Enough for one person, a bookshelf, a vase of fresh flowers, and a white cat named Karma, rescued from a shelter during Valentine's week. Ella doesn't work in marketing anymore. She now works for a nonprofit that helps women navigate the fallout of complicated relationships. Not just survivors of domestic violence, but those who've been gaslit, systematically deceived, and left with wounds no X-ray could show. She never told her story. Not once. But she wrote. Not with names. Not with "I went through." But with, when someone is treated as a temporary choice, the first thing they lose isn't trust, it's their sense of worth. Her first blog post went live without fanfare. No photos, no shock value, just words, sharp, quiet, and cold as steel. Within 24 hours, it was shared over 40,000 times. Readers left comments like, "I saw myself in every sentence. You didn't need to explain your past. I still felt the truth. This is the first thing I've read that made me want to leave, not out of rage, but because I finally believe I deserve better." A podcast reached out. They asked her to guest on an episode titled Emotional Aftershocks and Growing Beyond Betrayal. She said yes. On the podcast episode, the host asked, "Did you ever want revenge?" Ella shook her head. "I didn't want to drag anyone down to the bottom. I just didn't want to stay stuck there myself." "Have you forgiven him?" "I'm not sure I've forgiven, but I've stopped waiting for an apology." That episode stayed in the top 5 on Apple Podcasts for 3 days. Afterward, a publishing house reached out with a book deal. Ella declined. She didn't want her name on a cover with the label survivor. She no longer saw herself as a victim. She was just someone who had moved on, without carrying the old baggage with her. One Tuesday afternoon, after a team meeting at work, Ella received an email from an unfamiliar address, but the subject line hit instantly. "I owe you something." She clicked. Sender, Sam Ward. The email was long, 3 paragraphs. There were commas, hesitations, a kind of trembling between the lines, like he had written and erased it 100 times. "Ella, you've probably blocked me everywhere, but I'm hoping this email still reaches you. I'm not making excuses. I'm not asking for anything back. I just want you to know, I remember what I lost. Not because Madison left. Not because the accounts got frozen. Not because my mother returned everything without a word. But because every time I look in the mirror, the only thing I see is your face that day. When you said nothing at all. I didn't understand the value of trust until there was no one left who trusted me. If there's one thing I wish I could say again, it's this. I'm sorry. Because I made you the other woman in the story where you were supposed to be the center." Sam. Ella finished reading and sat in silence for a few minutes. No tears. No anger. Just a strange sensation. Like a stranger had described a dream she once had, but called it by the wrong name. She hadn't planned to respond, but a minute later she opened a new message. Typed exactly 3 words, "Not your story," no greeting, no sign-off, no punctuation beyond what was needed. She hit send, then archived the email. Didn't delete it, just filed it away like people do with old letters, not because they missed the sender, but to remind themselves, "I survived that." That night, Ella filmed a short video, the opening for a new series her organization was launching, Voice of the Quiet Ones. No studio lighting, no fancy mic. Just her, in her apartment, sitting in front of a webcam. She looked directly into the lens, no performance, no trembling. "There are people you'll love," she said, "who will choose to marry someone else." A pause. "Don't chase them. Don't ask why. Don't try to fix what they were never trying to keep." Another pause. "Because if someone can cast you as a side character in your own story, then maybe you shouldn't be in their story at all." She took a breath, looked deep into the camera. "If the person you love chooses to marry someone else, let them, because you should never be anyone's plan B." Her eyes didn't blink, her voice didn't rise, but there was something in it, cold enough to cut straight through the screen. The video was shared over 200,000 times in its first week. No one called her Ella Cruz, the one who got lied to. They called her simply Ella, the one who held her ground. And as Ella's name rose for standing firm in her worth somewhere else, Sam Ward's name quietly began to vanish from every list. No one spoke of him as a victim, and no one, ever, remembered him as someone worth forgiving. Sam didn't go to prison. There was no courtroom headline. But what came after was worse, because it was quiet, slow, and had no finish line. After Madison left, Sam tried to reach her, through friends, family, even old coworkers. No one replied. One close friend sent back a single message: "You should be grateful she just left and didn't sue you." He lost his job when the company discovered that his internal account had been used for suspicious transactions, a discovery triggered after Ella submitted her legal file. The company didn't make a scene. They just erased him from the system. His financial records were flagged, loan applications were denied. Every job application hit a wall when it came to background checks. One of them included the question, "Have you ever been under investigation for financial fraud or personal misconduct?" Sam couldn't check no. And checking yes meant no one ever called back. He moved into a small rental on the outskirts of town. No one there knew he had once convinced two women at the same time that each was the love of his life. Sam tried to start a blog, to tell his side of the story. No one read it. A simple search of his name brought up pages of anonymous accounts, allegations, warnings, from Madison's friends, from people who knew Ella, from others who had crossed paths with him. No one defended him. In private women's support groups, his name became a study case. The blueprint of a skilled liar, a double lifer, someone who used trust like a tool and broke it like it meant nothing. Sam used to believe that with enough time, people would forget what he did. But eventually he realized no one forgot. They just stopped caring. No one asked where he went. No one wondered how he was doing. No one mentioned his name at reunions. The people who once believed in him most changed their numbers, moved homes, shifted tone. And Ella? She never deleted his email, but she never replied again. From the moment she hit "not your story," Sam stopped being an unfinished chapter. He became a corrupted line, crossed out. Not worth fixing, not worth rereading. And that, for someone like him, was the heaviest punishment of all, to be forgotten while still alive. They say true love never loses its way. But the truth is, loving someone with everything you have doesn't guarantee they'll give it back. Sometimes, you love a person not to stay, but to learn how to walk away without saying sorry for it. Ella didn't come out as the winner. She simply refused to let herself be the one who lost. She didn't need to prove anything. She didn't need to shout so the world would know she was right. She just chose to move forward, head held high, heart no longer tied to a liar. So now the question is, what about you? If you found out the person you love most was living two lives, what would you do? Would you choose silence like Ella, or would you confront it, fight for justice? Would you heal, or strike back? Tell us your answer in the comments, because maybe, just maybe, your story was never really yours to begin with. If this story hit something deep inside you, hit follow on Love Stories so you don't miss the raw, honest journeys we bring to light. We tell these stories not to make you hurt again, but to remind you, you're not alone.